Words of condolence upon the death of Chairman Mao Zedong. Phone call made to Beijing after the death of Mao Zedong, September 18, 1976. On behalf of the Kampuchean Revolutionary Organization, the Kampuchean people, the Presidium of the State of Democratic Kampuchea, the Permanent Committee of the People's Congress of Kampuchea, the Government of Democratic Kampuchea, and the Kampuchean Revolutionary Army, we have come to the Embassy of the People's Republic of China with extreme grief and regret to extend our boundless revolutionary affection and esteem to the memory of the sublime soul of Chairman Mao Zedong, the esteemed and beloved great leader of the Chinese people, our fraternal comrades in arms, the outstanding teacher of the world proletariat and the oppressed nations and oppressed people, and the closest and most warm-hearted comrade in arms of the Kampuchean people. Though Chairman Mao Zedong has left the Chinese people and the oppressed people of the world, his name and Mao Zedong thought will live forever in the hearts of the revolutionary people of China and the oppressed people of the world. Long live the 17th anniversary of the Communist Party of Kampuchea. Speech made on the 17th anniversary of the CPK, September 29, 1977. Respected and beloved comrades representing the workers' collectives. Respected and beloved comrades representing the peasants' collectives. Respected and beloved comrades representing the three branches of the Revolutionary Army, land, sea, and air. Respected and beloved comrades representing all government ministries and departments. We are gathered here today to honor the 17th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of Kampuchea. I take this occasion to extend my greetings to the entire collectivist working class which has waged and is waging the struggle everywhere, at every workplace, on every front, to contribute to the national defense, the building up of the country, and the raising of the people's living standard, all toward carrying out, with a high sense of revolutionary responsibility, the glorious task which the party has entrusted to them. At this great meeting, I address my deep greetings to the collectivist peasant class, the members of the cooperatives throughout the country who, as they have done in the past, are today zealously struggling to realize the objectives of the rice production plan. With a strong sense of responsibility and with the aim of contributing to the national defense, to the building up of the country, and to the rapid raising of the standard of living of the people, the peasants are carrying out this plan, which the party entrusted to them in 1977. Let me extend warmest and most profound greetings to the Revolutionary Army, which has struggled and continues to struggle to surmount every obstacle on every front, even in our most remote areas, in order to defend the national sovereignty and territorial integrity of our democratic Kampuchea. They do this with a strong sense of revolutionary responsibility, thus making an important contribution to the building up of the country and to the rapid raising of the living standard of the people. I address my profound greetings to all the comrades of the revolutionary government ministries and departments who, as in the past, are today surmounting all difficulties and concentrating all their efforts to carry out the revolutionary tasks which the party has entrusted to them, in order to make their contribution to national defense, construction of the country, and to the rapid raising of the people's living standard. I must express my deepest respect for all these comrades because, as in the past, at present, and in the future, it is and will be our revolutionary army, our working class, our peasantry, our comrades in the revolutionary government ministries and departments, who, united in a single force, assure the defense of our sacred national territory, are building our new Kampuchea and raising the standard of living of our people by following the slogan, to progress by great leaps and bounds. This year, the celebration of the anniversary of the founding of our party will be marked by an exceptional event that I will now officially make known to you. In commemorating the 17th anniversary of its founding, our party has decided to solemnly proclaim, before our country and whole world, the official existence of the Communist Party of Kampuchea. RD of Kampuchea. Our people of all social classes and strata already know that it is the Communist Party of Kampuchea which is the sole genuine leadership of the Kampuchean Revolution. Moreover, our people know perfectly well that, in order for successive revolutionary victories, culminating in the great victory of April 17, 1975, to have been possible, the leadership of the CPK was necessary. All the social classes and strata of our people, especially the workers, peasants, and other revolutionaries, have learned to know and to appreciate the Communist Party of Kampuchea for many years, even if we had not proclaimed its existence officially. For a long period of 17 years, our party did not make its existence public. The entire Kampuchean people, especially the poor strata, waited impatiently for the solemn proclamation of the Communist Party of Kampuchea in order to praise the merits of the party, which has made sacrifices in order to lead the people in the revolution of Kampuchea and to liberate the nation and people. This is why we are convinced that, from this time on, all the Kampuchean people will make the country ring with praise for the correct and clear-sighted Communist Party of Kampuchea, and they will increase the support they have always given to what they knew only as the Revolutionary Organization of Kampuchea. Everywhere, in the most remote areas, in the depths of the forests and on the mountains, across the plains and in the towns, the solemn proclamation of the party will be greeted with cheers of joy. Our friends around the world also know that no people in the world has won a revolution without being led by a working-class party. Why then, in Kampuchea, where the people won victory upon victory until the greatest victory over U.S. imperialism, leader of world imperialism, had they never heard mention of the leadership of a communist party? Thus, all these friends have also awaited the solemn proclamation of the official existence of the Communist Party of Kampuchea in order to praise it and the great victory won by the party, which led the Kampuchean people to the glorious victory of April 17, 1975. On the occasion of the official proclamation of the existence of our party, all our people will be greatly elated. Our friends far and near on the 5 continents will warmly acclaim it, while the imperialists and reactionaries will be most bitter at the prestige and power of the Communist Party of Kampuchea. The celebration of the 17th anniversary of our party is then a historic moment for our nation, our people, our revolution, and our Communist Party of Kampuchea. This is why, on this occasion, we must honor the memory of all the heroes and heroines from among all the people, the entire Revolutionary Army, and all the members of our party. These comrades have endured every hardship, made sacrifice after sacrifice for the full liberation of Kampuchea, to make our country 100% independent, to totally liberate the people, particularly the masses of workers, peasants, and other laboring people who comprise more than 90% of the population. They made these sacrifices in order that Kampuchea and the Kampuchean people, who have suffered enslavement, deceit, oppression, and exploitation for centuries, might have honor, glory, prosperity, and prestige, such that there would be friends on 5 continents who would rejoice at the great victories of our revolution. In honoring the memory of all these comrades and heroes who laid down their lives, moved by noble patriotic feelings with lofty revolutionary spirit and deep and noble feelings of love and devotion to the people and to the working class, we all pledge ourselves to find inspiration in their noble example, to show our gratitude to them, to be their worthy successors, and to accomplish the noble tasks that the party has entrusted to each of us. We all resolve to turn our sorrows, our anger, and our grief for the loss of these valiant comrades in arms into a strength ever more vigorous. We do this in order to fight to accomplish the tasks of the party, with a heightened sense of revolutionary responsibility, an ardent patriotism, and a profound devotion to the people and to the working class, both in 1977 and in the years to come. It is with a resolve to learn from the example of our comrades in arms who have passed away that I propose, on the occasion of the celebration of the party's 17th anniversary, the following theme for our great meeting today. Let us contemplate and learn from the revolutionary movement of the Kampuchean people, under the leadership of the Communist Party of Kampuchea, and learn from our people's movement of revolutionary struggle, which, in the course of the preceding generations, fought for national liberation, independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity in order to save the Kampuchean nation and to ensure its survival so that Kampuchea will never again lose any territory, as it did before, in the era when the various exploiting classes were in power, when it lost some every year, every instant. To make it easier to understand, my talk will be divided into 3 sections. The first part deals with the struggle of the Kampuchean people before the founding of the party, from the period of slavery to 1960, the year of the founding of the Communist Party of Kampuchea. The second part deals with the National Democratic Revolution led by the Communist Party of Kampuchea from 1960 to 1975. The third part deals with the new stage of the Kampuchean Revolution, the defense of democratic Kampuchea, continuation of the socialist revolution and socialist construction. The 3 parts, which I have just enumerated, outline the history of the revolutionary movement of our people, from its beginnings up to today. Our aim is to give a general idea of our revolutionary movement. We will not go into the problems in detail in their many aspects, but we are going to stick to explaining what, in our view, is at the root of our victories. It is because we have elaborated a strategy and tactics for our movement, because we have summed up our experiences in the course of our work, and because we have established throughout our struggle a correct line on political questions, on the building up of our forces, on military economic questions, that we have won our victories. An examination of the various aspects of our movement, from its beginnings up to the present day, will show whether or not the Communist Party of Kampuchea is really a genuine Marxist-Leninist party, whether it is a genuine proletarian party. All the comrades will be able to make their own evaluations based on the substance of our revolutionary movement. These are questions which must be raised. Therefore, this meeting is not only held for a moment, after which you can go back and carry out your normal tasks. This meeting is one in which we must all examine, judge, and study the experiences of our revolutionary movement under the leadership of our Communist Party of Kampuchea. Allow me to present to you the first part of the speech dealing with the movements of struggle of the Kampuchean people before the birth of the party, from the era of slavery to 1960. The struggle of the Kampuchean people from the slave period to 1960. Kampuchea already has a history of more than 2,000 years. This history shows that Kampuchean society, like every other society, has gone through a number of different stages. Kampuchean society went through a stage of primitive communism. After primitive communism, it entered its slave period, then its feudal period. After this, it entered the stage of capitalism. Just recently, after the capitalist period, Kampuchean society has entered a new era, the era of socialist society. Thus, we have passed through all the historic stages. Within the framework of primitive communism, there were not yet any classes. Consequently, there was no class struggle. When Kampuchean society entered the slave period, it divided into classes, a class of slave owners and a class of slaves. In feudal society, there were landlords and peasants. In capitalist society, there were the capitalists and the workers. This is the real essence of each society that our country has known. During the slave period, the feudal period, and the capitalist period, particularly during the feudal capitalist era, our country was also subject to foreign domination. For example, speaking only of the last period, Kampuchean society was a colonial and semi-colonial society, subject to the domination of the French, Japanese, and U.S. imperialists. Thus, all the foreigners came to exploit our country. Were there class contradictions in slave, feudal, and capitalist societies? Of course there were class contradictions. A number of comrades have studied the history of Kampuchea. It clearly shows that there was class struggle for a very long time between the exploited and exploiting classes. 1. In slave society, there was struggle between the exploiters' slave owners and exploited slaves or owned servants. These two factions were adversaries, sworn enemies in the life and death conflict. Those of the slaves who refused to be exploited joined together to fight against their oppressors. Did such struggle actually occur? Certainly it did. This is attested to by what is known about society and about exploitation, as well as by the social sciences. Our own history confirms it. In slave society, the exploited class struggled against the exploiting class. But this struggle was not guided by a correct line. History shows that the struggle of those times sometimes failed, sometimes triumphed. Some slaves became leaders of armies and defeated the slave owners, making themselves lords in order to exploit others in their turn. This is not a path which served the masses of slaves. It did not serve the exploited slave class. This was a line which served the personal interests of some men and their cliques in order that they might dominate and exploit others. Did the oppressed accept oppression? Of course not. They fought back against the exploiters to defeat them. This is what happened during slave society. We can see that. Throughout this experience, there was struggle. The slaves rose up in struggle. But this struggle did not culminate in success because it was based on a line which does not serve the masses and the exploited classes. In the beginning, some leaders managed to deceive the masses. But the oppressed are quick to catch on when they are being exploited and to rise up against their exploiters. The real substance of our revolution is the elimination of exploiting classes and the liberation of the exploited. We study this lesson to understand that now it is our party which is in power, and if it ever follows the path of the slave era, it will be fought and overthrown by the worker and peasant masses. If the political line serves the workers, peasants, and the broad masses of people, it will meet broad support. It constitutes a powerful force which assures strong national defense, rapid building up of the country, and a rapid rise in the people's living standard. The party is the true representative of the poor classes. If it is not so, if the party exploits and crushes the people will fight back and reject it. This is the experience of history. We must always, everywhere, examine ourselves. It is not only the party as a whole which must do it, but also every party organization, every cadre, every member of the party, every official in the factories, in the ports, in the energy service, in the salt marshes. If it no longer represents the basic classes, the exploited people, this party will have no meaning. It can no longer claim to be the party of the proletariat. The committees would have no meaning. Being a chairman would also be meaningless. Meaningless in the sense that they no longer represent the proletariat. Such a party, such cadres, such committees would change their class nature, and thus, at that point, enter into contradiction with the proletariat. What lesson can we draw from the struggle during the period of slave society? The positive point is that the exploited people, the slaves, struggled against the exploiting classes, the slave owners. The slaves were trained, forged in the course of successive struggles. This is the great lesson we must all learn from our poor people, who have made every sacrifice in the struggle to liberate the exploited classes and do away with exploiting classes. But another lesson, which we must not forget, is that without a correct political line, a struggle is bound to fail. 2. The history of our country clearly shows the existence of two classes in feudal society. These are the classes of feudalists and landlords and the peasant class. The feudalists and landlords were the warlords, who exploited the peasant class in every way. Thus, the exploited peasantry entered into contradiction with the feudalist and landlord class and fought back against it. This struggle developed everywhere in the country. Some peasant movements were put down and destroyed, others defeated the feudalists and landlords. But the peasant movements which gained victory did not have a political line which could serve the exploited peasant class or end exploitation. On the contrary, the winners, in some places, made themselves feudalists, landlords, or warlords, and in so doing, became the new exploiters of the peasant class. Did the exploited peasant class accept these new feudalists, landlords, or warlords? Of course not. The peasants fought to defeat the new exploiters, as they had fought the ones before them. This shows that there were movements of the exploited peasant class against the exploiting class of feudalists and landlords, but these movements of struggle each met with defeat. What lessons can we draw from this? One lesson is that the exploited peasant class was moved to rise and struggle. This struggle went on throughout a long period and developed in one movement after another. It mainly took the form of armed struggle, of war. Through this struggle, the exploited peasant class was trained, tempered with their own blood. They acted with courage and skill and won victories against the enemy. The other lesson is that the struggle of the exploited class, at that time the peasantry, met repeated defeats despite its heroism. What was the reason for this? Mainly, it was that there was no correct line which could powerfully and broadly mobilize the forces of the exploited class to crush the exploiters, the feudalists, landlords, and warlords. In this same feudal epoch, enemies came from abroad, some foreign feudalists and foreign reactionaries, and colonialists came to invade our country. As invaders, they entered into antagonistic contradiction with the Kampuchean nation and people. They invaded, exploited, and oppressed the Kampuchean nation and people, particularly the peasant class. At the same time, the Kampuchean nation and people, particularly the peasant class, rose up to drive out the foreign invaders in order to be freed and to free the country and people, particularly the peasantry. These movements of struggle appeared everywhere, one after another, taking the form of armed struggle. Some movements met defeat and were crushed, but in other places, they won. Even so, their victory was temporary, because those who were the victors did not possess a correct line to really liberate the country and really liberate the people, the exploited masses who comprised the peasant class. Once they won, they thought only of their own interest and the interest of their clique. They made themselves warlords and ruled like kings and viceroys, and they became the new exploiters of the peasant class. When the peasant people turned against them, they sought aid and protection from the foreign feudalists and reactionaries, or from the colonialists, cutting off much national territory for them or selling it to them in order to continue to reign as kings, in kingdoms indebted to foreigners collaborating with them in the exploitation of the peasantry. This was the state of the struggle of the nation and of the peasantry during the feudal era. In reality, there was great heroism in this struggle, but it met defeat upon defeat. This was because there was no political line which could serve the nation and true national liberation, serve the people and the true liberation of the nation. 3. During the feudo-capitalist era, in particular, just after the Second World War, there were many movements among the people of Kampuchea. These movements were quite different in nature from the movements of earlier times, because colonialism and international imperialism had acquired more experience in sabotaging the movements of the exploited nations and peoples. These movements were A. The movement called the Struggle for National Independence, which included several political parties, such as the Democratic Party, the Freedom Party, the Mother Earth Party, the Hen Party, the Arrow Party, and many others which formed later. These parties competed with each other in elections for their so-called independence. In reality, however, these parties were created out of the French colonial laws, made promises with the French colonialists and were authorized by them, represented the classes of feudalists, aristocrats, big landlords, capitalists, and other privileged strata. Was their struggle really that of the people, in the interest of the people? Was it for national independence? Of course not. The essence of their so-called struggle was to obtain independence for Kampuchea from the French colonialists, in the interest of the feudalists, aristocrats, landlords, capitalists, and other privileged strata. Of course, this form of struggle confused and deceived the masses only for a while, but later, the masses cursed it and opposed it. B. The Japanese fascists and the US CIA created an independence movement, which they called Popular Movement or Khmer Serre, with Sun Gokthang at the slogan, "Demand Independence from the French," launched by Sun Gokthang, could fool a few students for a while, but later, the Popular Movement, or Khmer Serre, was condemned everywhere, spat upon, and rejected by the nation and the people of Kampuchea, since its leader was a traitor to the nation. This so-called struggle to gain independence from France was, in fact, a struggle to gain independence for Kampuchea by the US imperialists, whose aim was to transform Kampuchea into a neo-colony and a base for its military aggression. C. There was another movement of struggle. This was the authentic revolutionary struggle of our people, particularly of the poor peasants, to wrest independence from the French imperialists. This revolutionary struggle developed in several parts of our country. The people made every sacrifice in combat against the enemy. It was an armed struggle, and in the course of it, the people built their army and established their bases. But this revolutionary struggle of our people and their revolutionary gains vanished into thin air with the 1954 Geneva Accords. What was the reason for this? The lessons, which our people paid for with their blood during the history of their courageous struggle, show that the absence of a clear and correct line to guide the revolutionary struggle was the reason for the successive failures of our people. Therefore, the following questions were raised. How do we wage the struggle? What are its strategy and tactics? What are its orientation and its objectives? What forces should we rely on? What form should the struggle take? In fact, there was no independence, initiative, or self-reliance. Without a political line which gives judicious guidance, one becomes blind. Even with great strength and determination, one cannot win. One loses one's orientation. One doesn't know what to hold on to. One proceeds towards certain defeat and, in the end, ruin. To summarize, our people have fought for a very long time, from the slave period to the struggle against the French, but they met one defeat after another. Throughout this period, the movement of our people has left us two major lessons. The best lesson is that our people are courageous, moved by fierce patriotism, daring to struggle, daring to sacrifice themselves to fight the enemies of the nation, the aggressors and the exploiters who are the class enemies. We must grasp this special point well. If we do not, we are gravely underestimating our people. If we do not learn from the movement of our people since its beginnings, we cannot avoid thinking that our people do not dare to struggle, do not know how to struggle, that they are lazy, weak, cowardly, and have accomplished nothing. But, in fact, from generation to generation, our people have always struggled, have always shed their blood. They dare to wage armed struggle, which is the highest form of struggle. They even struggle barehanded. Our people have struggled, they still struggle, they will struggle forever. Are such people brave, or are they cowards? They are truly a brave people, truly worthy, having beautiful traditions of struggle. We must grasp this lesson and emulate it so as to keep our people's good trait aloft and alive forever. The reality is that the people have struggled, a fact not imagined by some writer. Thus, whether or not we have confidence in the masses depends on the examination that we make of our people's movement. Our people have dared to fight foreign invaders in every era. They dared to struggle against the French invaders. They dared to struggle against the Japanese and the American invaders. They have always dared to struggle. For this reason, we all place our complete confidence in our people, expand and strengthen this confidence, and rely on our people. The force of the people can carry out any task of the revolution. The second lesson is that, although valiant, if the struggle is misdirected, it is going to lose. In the past, we did not have a line. Our people were very courageous, made immense sacrifices, but they continually met defeat because they did not base themselves on a correct line. There was no line which could resist the foreign enemies who invaded us. There was no line to fight back against the class enemies who exploited us within the country. And so, from this negative experience, how can we draw a positive lesson? We must have a correct line. We must have the leadership of a true party of the working class with a correct line. When we possess a correct line which can mobilize the people's forces, they will be very powerful. Now, we must have a line. But what line? A line copied from others will not work. We must have a line coming from a position of independence and initiative, of deciding our own destiny. Self-reliance means relying principally and fundamentally on our own people, our own army, our own party, on the concrete revolutionary movement in our country. Thus, we must elaborate a correct line to win victory. This is why we drew up the strategic and tactical lines of our national democratic revolution, the question to which I will address myself in the second part of my talk.